Welcome back to the Neo Marketing Podcast. Today we're going to talk about a briefing tool for decision makers.
Welcome to the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of modern business communication.
Kyle, how are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking,
That's
Pritch.
awesome. I love to hear that fantastic answer. Yeah, exactly. Well, I wanted to share today with something that my good friend and fellow crisis communicator Jim Lukashevsky developed as a briefing format called the 3-minute drill.
Okay.
And it's really, I'm using it in my crisis communications class now because I think it's really important for young professionals to learn how to brief a senior in the organization.
I think it's very important for them to learn in an academic setting because you don't get very many dry fire shots at it in the real world. And so you really need to have a good background in it and make some plans when you start your professional career, because when it happens, you got to be ready.
The first rattle out of the box should not be the first time you brief a CEO. Anyway, I think Jim's got a great framework here. It helps you provide focused, accurate, timely information, and usually, it's designed for crisis, of course, but it is useful in other decision-making briefings.
Absolutely.
And the folks you're briefing typically don't have a lot of time.
True.
And they've got a lot of other people in the room.
The higher up the chain they are, the less time they have for you.
That's exactly right. So this is 450 words, 3 minutes.
Okay.
And it's a 6-step process. The first one is 60 words, situation description. Now, one of the hardest things for my students to understand is you're talking to the CEO, so they know all of the obvious stuff.
You don't need any background.
You don't. What you need to tell them is the communication environment in this particular case. But if you're briefing it for sales, it's the sales situation.
Right.
What's going on right now? The factual basis for what we know now. Okay, so that's step one.
Good.
Step two is analysis. It's also 60 words. So I told you what the situation is. What's it mean?
Right.
Okay. What are the implications? And perhaps...
And even more so where you have to keep it simple, right?
Yes.
Don't go into a lot of flowery language. That's why you only got 60 words, right?
That's exactly right.
You tell them what's going on. Now you got to tell them what it means.
What does it mean?
What do we need to know? What do we need to do?
And sometimes that should include how the current situation threatens the opportunities of the organization.
Yes.
And as you said, managers need to know the intelligence that you've gathered, but they don't need it in great detail.
No,
so that's why it's only 60 words.
Boil it down.
Absolutely. Step 3 is the goal.
Yeah.
The clear, concise statement of the task to be accomplished, as Jim puts it.
And I think clear and concise is the key here as well.
Absolutely.
Too many people want to set goals that are big and broad and wide, and no matter what happens, we'll say we accomplished our goal. In this situation, you want it to be as specific as possible.
Absolutely. And in terms of behavioral, emotional, intellectual change, what do you want them to do? And then the biggest chunk is 150 words, it's options. And here I really love the way that Jim does this because he insists that the first option is always do nothing.
Okay.
And the reason he says do nothing.
Don't panic.
Is because all of those other people in the room, in particular the lawyer.
Oh, there's always a lawyer in the room.
Is going to say, we shouldn't say anything because we'll get called into the court.
Yes.
Well, you don't want to get called into the court of public opinion either.
We've said on this show many times that the court of public opinion is more powerful and easier to kill a business than the court of law.
Yeah, absolutely. And more quickly
right.
than a lawsuit, for sure.
Absolutely.
So option 1 is do nothing.
Okay.
Option 2 completely solves the problem. Mm-hmm. And again, this is a little difficult sometimes for my students to grasp, but because we're working off of case studies, they know exactly what the organization did.
Right.
And sometimes they're reluctant to put all that down. No, option 2 completely solves the problem.
Gotcha.
Okay. Option 3 then, Jim calls do something more. I call it the 125% solution.
I like that.
So, okay, you've solved the problem and you've got an opportunity usually in a crisis to help the reputation at least.
Absolutely. And to miss that opportunity would be tragic.
Absolutely.
This is, in marketing, we call it value added, right?
Yeah.
You give more than is expected.
Yeah.
If you have a crisis communication situation, your entity is in a negative light and you're trying to put yourself back in a positive light, you have attention. If you have the attention, why not go that extra step, that extra 25%,
Absolutely.
and not just let them get back to where we started, but, hey, they handled that so well, not only do I not have a negative opinion, I have a positive opinion, but I have even more a positive opinion. This is
greater affinity.
The apex of taking a negative and returning it into a positive.
Absolutely, absolutely. And taking this out of the crisis situation, I can see a lot of value for strategic conversations in a company.
And I think any conversation that ends with how do we go further is always a good conversation.
Yeah.
And it needs to happen on a regular basis because it gets too day-to-day minutia, gets you too caught up in not trying to move yourself forward and do better.
Right. And talk about value add, if you can nail this, then you become a trusted advisor.
Absolutely.
Keep your seat at the table. That's really important. So step 5 is a recommendation. Now we're back to 60 words. Be prepared to say what you would do if you were in the boss's shoes. Okay.
Got to be careful here that you're making a recommendation to the subject matter and to the topic, but you're not telling the boss what to do.
Right.
And I think eventually you'll figure out what the boss says yes to and no to, and make sure that you don't intentionally wander into the path of no, because it becomes very combative. And we're trying to solve a problem here. You don't want to start another one by being that person.
Right.
So it needs to be collaborative in effort.
Right. Well, and the option that's presented should be the one that has the least number of unintended consequences. Boss always wants to know what you would do
But always make sure you're presenting a solution and not a
just
here's
a
what
problem.
you should do, because then it becomes a little bit of a challenge because you're not smart enough to figure this out yourself, or you have a tendency to make bad decisions.
Right.
So it is the best thing for the company as opposed to what you need to do, because it becomes the person who's probably not that high up the food chain trying to tell the guy at the top or girl at the top what to do.
Yeah.
And it's not about that. It's about solving the problem.
No, and it's solving the problem.
Right.
And never bring a problem to your boss without bringing a solution to.
Absolutely, too. And here's a little extra tips, complete sidebar here. If you are, and Pritch doesn't know what I'm going to say here, so this will be funny. If you're anywhere from the middle of the corporate food chain down, from the entry level, you just got out of college.
Right.
Maybe you're a coordinator, a manager, maybe even a director, but you're not in the C-suite yet. You're not a VP. You don't have a C title to your name.
Right.
This process here, you have to be very political in your approach. Diplomatic is a great way of saying that. For sure.
Diplomatic, shall we say?
Absolutely.
Right.
And you also the second half of that is about being diplomatic is when we get the problem solved, the public gets what they need, and there's not just you and the CEO working on this. There's a bunch of people working on it, right? At the end of the day, everyone in the food chain is going to take credit for the problem getting solved.
Of course.
Part of being a professional is allowing that to happen.
Right.
If you want to kill any goodwill you created by helping solve the problem and being a team member, go out there and tell everyone it was your idea. That's exactly right. So don't do that, folks. Do not do that.
There's a couple other things I'll mention here in a moment, too.
I just had to say that because I've seen that happen too many times recently.
Yep, absolutely. Think you know more than anybody else, and that's usually not the case.
It's not a good look until you're the actual CEO.
Right. The last step is justification. 60 words again. Identify the negative but predictable unintentional consequences of each option, and that reactions or circumstances that could arrive. But why is our recommendation the best recommendation to make? So
it takes a ton of honesty and integrity to present here's how it could fail.
Right.
Everyone wants to present to the boss on how it's going to work.
Right.
You have to present why it could fail and might fail, because if the situation starts going in that direction, you'll be better prepared to head that off if it happens, if you discuss it now.
And it's not a surprise. As we've said many times before, there are no pleasant surprises.
Don't be afraid of the negative.
Relations.
Don't be afraid of communicating the negative on an internal process like this, because then you're better prepared to handle it if that's how the situation works out. Because as much as we're trying to control the situation here, we have no control of the situation. Yep. The public and the audience and every other outside factor is going to control how it happens.
Absolutely. So there you go. 450 words, 3 minutes. I think it's a great framework for anybody to use. I would add on to the comment you made earlier about if you want to see your name in lights, public relations is the wrong business for you.
Marketing is too, because you're always going to be working on a team.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, right, everyone, no matter if you're 15, 30, 45, 65, 80, right? You feel like you're ready to be the boss. You feel like you have really great ideas. I'm smart as that guy, that girl. I can do it too, right? But you got to earn your stripes. You got to earn your experience. You got to work your way up the chain.
Earn your way.
If you do it, and I was guilty too when I was in my 20s and 30s, I really thought I knew everything. And there are things now I look back in my 40s and beyond that I say, man, I really probably left a bad taste in people's mouth. And so that's one of the reasons I really like to bring that up in conversations like this. It's hard to hear sometimes, but you just have to play your role, be that person on the team that eventually wins people over as opposed to sort of shoving it down their throat.
Right, exactly. And in my own experience, I started out, honestly, as an order taker. The boss would tell me what he wanted done, and I'd do it, right? Aye, sir, 3 bags full.
Well, that's what happens in the Navy, right?
At some point in time, I became a more strategic thinker.
Right.
And I think this framework helps you be disciplined and strategic in the way that you present information to very, very busy people.
But I'm very happy, too, about you presenting this today, and we'll have links on all our social media to the actual outline so anyone can use this. Because obviously, from just our interactions alone and all the what ifs and all the parameters that go around situations like this, there isn't a single way to do it correctly.
Right.
There's lots of ways to do it wrong, or lots of moving parts that could go wrong. So having an outline and a guide like this that can get you through the majority of it in a really structured way, and then you just have to put everyone's experience and situational analysis together to make it work for you. But having this first 50% or 75% of it structured is a really valuable tool. So I'm really happy that you brought this to the audience today.
Thanks. I think it's also a framework that allows you to begin the discussion on your terms. As opposed to letting somebody else at the table start the discussion.
Yes, because they don't have the training experience you have. They're,
they're worried about a completely
different area. If they're in sales, they're worried about sales.
Exactly.
If they're in engineering, they're worried about engineering. Exactly. Maybe they're worried about the lawyer, right? So this does allow you to sort of accomplish what you need to accomplish in your PR and public relations and community relations in a nice structured way. It's a good place to start. And then how it works out is going to be how it works out. And it depends on the people in the room and all the dynamics.
Right. They can always say no. But I almost guarantee you, doing nothing is not going to be the option that they pick.
Nope, we've said it before, right? There's no such thing as not doing anything.
That's what we got for you today. We really appreciate your time and attention. Love to hear your comments, especially on this framework. And thanks, Jim. I appreciate you giving this to me and to my students. Until next week, ciao.
Good luck.